Join cities across the nation in a march for truth. The nationwide demonstration is aimed at sending a message to the federal government, specifically, they say, to the White House. News Channel 8's Chip Osowski joining us live from downtown St. Pete with all the details on that. Chip?
Right, quiet here now, but earlier today that wasn't the case. Dozens gathered here hoping that their voices would be heard in Washington, D.C. They chanted and they held signs. Many in this crowd feel the current administration needs to be held accountable. They believe the president should release his tax returns. They believe the public deserves transparency and a pursuit of the truth that does not follow party lines. They believe congressional investigations must be properly resourced and a special prosecutor should be named. They hope their numbers nationwide send a strong message.
We believe that democracy is participatory and decisions get made by people who show up. And so we want to be part of a larger group of people that are asking for the truth and asking the right questions to protect the democracy that we all love and care about.
There's so much corruption in the current administration, and it just is flooding in. And we need to stand out here as Americans. It's country before party.
And in addition to the demonstration here, there were similar ones scheduled for Siesta Key, Sarasota, and Brandon. Reporting live in St. Petersburg
and Orlando.
News Channel 8.
All right, Chip, thanks.
Around the country, actually.
As President Trump hit the streets today, from Washington, D.C. to the West Coast, people made it a point to make their voices heard. Ashley Coram has that story for us.
Demonstrators from all across the country took to the streets Saturday, united in the March for Truth
Notice
protest.
the signs. Homemade.
Organizers are calling for an independent commission to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. elections and possible ties to President Trump. They also want Congress to require Trump to release his tax returns. The protests come ahead of testimony by former FBI Director James Comey to the Senate Intelligence Committee, scheduled for June 8th.
It has to be a transparent, independent investigation because the people need to know the truth.
The march wasn't the only rally happening in the nation's capital.
Look at the signs.
Supporters gathered to back the president's decision to pull the United States out of the Paris Agreement on climate change.
Look at those signs.
I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
Just parrots.
Trump said his decision to back out was to support American workers.
Paid protesters.
We wanted to come out and show our appreciation for what the president has done, following through on his campaign promise.
Despite facing global disapproval, Trump said he was open to renegotiating aspects of the agreement. European Union leaders say that's not an option. I'm Ashley Coram for News Channel 8.
Why don't they show how many people?
When we can join together to fight for our country, it reminds me of what we stand for.
Demonstrators in the Tampa Bay area and beyond taking part in what's being called the March for Truth, how it's connected to the presidential election.
Amazing video. Well, today a March for Truth was held nationwide, calling for an independent investigation into President Trump's ties to Russia. Several truth marches happened locally. This one on First Avenue in St. Pete drew more than 200 people. Others held in Sarasota and Siesta Key Beach. Now, demonstrators say they want answers about the role Russia played in last year's election. They also say they're still waiting for the president to release his tax returns. Even though the election is over, demonstrators say it's important to remain politically active.
It is country before party at this point in time. We're trying to unify people, spread the awareness, and we're not going away.
Republicans, independents, and Democrats alike need to know what happened with our election. This is our democracy we're talking about. This is our country.
The demonstrations come ahead of testimony by former FBI Director James Comey. He's scheduled to speak before the Senate Intelligence Committee on Thursday. Comey, who was fired by President Trump, is expected to present his side of the story. Well, still ahead, a big time. President Donald Trump and his supporters are still facing questions after withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Accord.
This is right where it starts. Go.
the March for Truth. They're demanding an honest investigation into the Trump campaign's alleged ties to Russia. At the same time, President Donald Trump and his supporters are still facing questions after withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Accord.
The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, is making clear how President Trump views climate change.
He believes the climate is changing, and he believes pollutants are part of that equation.
Haley clarified the president's opinion in an interview that will air Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation. Friday, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer and the head of the Environmental Protection Agency both deflected questions about the president's views on climate change, following his decision to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
I have not had an opportunity to have that discussion.
Supporters of the move held a rally outside the White House.
We do have to think about America and what we're doing, and not just go along with everybody else because they say we should.
Those opposed to the president's policies held more than 100 protests in cities around the world, demanding a full investigation into what connections the Trump team had with Russia.
We're trying to send signals to our elected officials that this is important to us.
The investigation will be back in the spotlight next week, when former FBI Director James Comey is scheduled to testify before Congress.
It is